Hi everyone, it's Darlene. Welcome back for another card. Today I've got this cute set by Mama Elephant called Shooting Star. I have two girls, so I thought this would be a fun set to have. It's got a little girl in it and lots of really fun sayings. It's very sweet. And then I have my star dies by Stampin' Up! That I'm going to be using. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is stamp the little girl on a piece of Neenah Solar White cardstock with some Memento Tuxedo Black ink. I wasn't sure how much of the cardstock I was going to need, so I just used a full 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch piece. And I started off with some E00 covering her whole face, and then I came in with my E30, and that's where I added some shadows. And this E02 is where I put her little cheeks and then blended it out with the E00. For her hair, I try to do the highlight first. I think that's probably the best way to go about it. So her highlight I did in E30. And then I took the E57 and started at the bottom, and I was kind of flicking my pen upward toward the E30 that I had put in the middle as the highlight, and then I filled it in with the E31. I'm going to do the same exact process on the left side, but I'm adding a little bit more shadow because she has that bow in her hair. For the bottom of her hair, the same colors, E57 first, and an extra E57 kind of next to her head because there's going to be a little bit more of a shadow there. And then I took my E31 and worked that up and then added the 30 and decided that, it wasn't blended enough for me, so I added E55 into the mix, and that was just enough to kind of pull together the E57 and the E31. So I'm just going to go and do the same thing on the other side. This time I remembered to do the reflection first, and then start with the darker color and work toward light. And I think that's probably the best way to do it. For her dress, I'm using blues, B000. So I added the highlights first, and then I took my BG05 and I put it in the darkest area. And now I'm moving toward those white areas. And you can see she's sitting down because there's that line in her dress. So I made it a little bit darker in that area. I added a yellow star in the middle, Y15, and I made her shoes yellow. And then I also made the strap and the purse, and then I took a much lighter yellow, Y000, and I filled in her purse and then kind of a medium Y11 there for the bottom of her shoes. Now this is where I was very upset because my camera turned off and I don't know what happened, but I'm just going to walk you through what I did. So I have C4 and I drew a line right where I thought she'd be sitting, kind of on a ledge. And then I took the C1 and I blended it all the way down, and you can see I sort of colored where I knew the star was going to be open. And after I got where she was sitting, I created this light behind her by taking Y15. And I'm showing you how I did it here. So I kind of held it to get some ink on the paper and then flicked it up. And then held it for a second and then flicked it up. And so you get kind of a heavy line around her head, and then it gets lighter and kind of lines are coming out of it as you're getting away from her. And then I took the Y11, which is just a lighter shade of yellow, and I started not quite at her head, but just maybe like 2 or 3 millimeters off her head and flicked upward just like I did with the Y15. Now to cut this star out, what I did was I measured the middle of my cardstock, which was 2 1/8. Then I took my T-square and I drew a line down the middle. And that allowed me to know exactly where the points of my star needed to be, because it's kind of hard to do freehand with the star. So I lined up the bottom and the top of the star, those points, the inside point and the outside point, and then I ran it through the Big Shot. And then I took this sentiment right here, "You're the brightest star," and I stamped that on the bottom with some VersaFine black onyx ink. And then finally I took some of my Radiant Neon yellow ink, and I took one of the little stars and I stamped it on the left side and the right side of the sentiment. And that's the parts that you missed. So again, I'm really sorry about that. I was very frustrated that my camera was off. Anyway, so now I'm going to take some Stampin' Up! Dimensionals and put them around my star, and then I'll adhere that to the girl panel. Now I wanted to cut, I remember my cardstock was full size because I wasn't sure what size I needed it to be. But my brilliant idea was to cut it after I put the dimensionals on. I did this on purpose, thinking, well, then I'll cut it exactly perfectly. And it was okay, but you have to be really, really careful. There was one time I almost cut the star panel. It worked, so it was cut perfectly, but I probably wouldn't do that next time. All right, so here is my star background, which I love and I use all the time, by Hero Arts. And I'm just going to ink up the bottom here because I'm just going to do a little section of my card base. And this is Versamark ink. And I'll turn it upside down and just do a little segment at the bottom, and then I'll do that same segment at the top. I didn't want to create another panel to have another layer on my card, so I'm just doing this directly to the card base. And then I'll cover that with some white embossing powder, and then I'll heat that to set it. And then once I've got that set, I'm going to take Squeezed Lemonade, which is a distress ink, and my ink foam applicator. And I'm just going to cover up the stars, and you're going to get a resist, and the stars are going to be white, and the background's going to be this Squeezed Lemonade. Now I know I'm using 3 different kinds of yellow. I've got my Copic, and I've got my Squeezed Lemonade, and then I've got the neon, but they all seem to match pretty well. Good enough for me anyway. All right, so I adhered it with my ATG, and sometimes you just cut a panel just a little sliver too long, so I just turned it over and I cut it with my scissor. And then I decided to take a Wink of Stella clear pen and make those stars a little shimmery. And that's the card for today. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.